Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. Today's lesson will be on this big roly-poly here, the giant isopod. The name giant isopod refers to any of the big isopods in the genus Bathynomus, but we'll be looking at the Bathynomus giganteus, which is known to be the biggest of them. So, that's what we'll be talking about. We don't know too much about these guys, but here's what we do know as of now. First discovered in 1879, the giant isopod is a crustacean, like crabs and shrimp, meaning it has the defining characteristics of a crustacean, like jointed legs and exoskeleton, which is what makes up its hard exterior of overlapping shell segments. While the roly-poly, or pill bug, but who calls it that, we see on land is usually like less than a centimeter long, the giant isopod can grow up to 16 inches long and are usually a light brown or pale lilac color. And just like roly-polies, the giant isopod can also curl itself up into a ball, so its hard shell is the only thing exposed. So if you're scared of bugs like roly-polies, first off, you're a little baby, and you suck. Second, you'd probably die if you saw one of these big boys in person. Because of their large size, they're another example of a phenomenon called deep-sea gigantism, which I might talk about in a future video, where deep-sea animals evolve to much bigger sizes than the relatives they have on land. Imagine being a roly-poly chillin', and then your distant giant isopod cousin Gary comes over. Grandma Roly's all like, "Oh my, you've grown so big, Gary," while you're worried about being eaten by Big Gary. Anyway, giant isopods have some pretty big compound eyes, a type of eyes insects have like flies do, which are made up of a large number of visual units. In the same area, they also have two sets of antennae, one super long and one shorter set that act as sensors to help them feel around their environment in the dark. They have 7 pairs of legs with small hooks at the tips to help them move across the ocean floor, while having a fan-like tail called a uropod and fluttering swimmerets on its underbody called pleopods, which also help them with respiration. To make it easier to understand, here's how they look like swimming. Fun fact, giant isopods are occasionally eaten as a novelty food in some East Asian countries. However, in Vietnam, they're actually sought after and considered to be a delicacy. But despite their large size, there actually isn't that much meat to eat from the isopod. But it apparently tastes kind of like a lobster or a crab, except kind of firmer and chewier. I don't know who found one of these and thought, "I have an idea." But I guess the human desire to try new foods knows no bounds. As mentioned earlier, the giant isopod roams the deep sea, being able to live more than 500 meters deep in the ocean, or over 1,600 feet in American units. In this area of the sea, it's pretty much pitch black like an empty abyss. Don't stare into it for too long, or it just might stare back. But it's okay if we can't see in the dark. That's why we have our cool deep diving machines to check it out for us, but we get to chill in our houses. For their diet, the giant isopod is known to be a scavenger at the very least, as are many deep sea creatures due to the fact that there's very little plant or animal life on the deep ocean floor. They'll go around looking for scraps like fish heads and crab bits, and if they're lucky, they might get to eat at a whale fall, where dead whales sink to the bottom of the sea. But whale falls aren't just something that happens every day. So, the giant isopod is going to have to gamble their life savings away and win the lottery if they want this full 10-course meal. Fortunately for them, giant isopods can live for quite some time without having to eat, like one kept in an aquarium that had gone for 5 years without eating. This may be because as a scavenger on the seafloor, they don't know when their next meal will be, so they save their energy and only spend it on moving and breathing. But this also gives them more time to gamble to get that sweet, sweet whale carcass. Although they're known to be scavengers, it is possible that giant isopods may be carnivores, meaning they don't just eat the scraps of dead animals, but also eat live animals. But this is supported by, quote, "some evidence." So I don't know man, seems good enough for me. As for their life cycle, we don't know much about it, but we know that female giant isopods lay around 20 to 30 eggs that are stored above its stomach in a pouch. The eggs will be there until they hatch, and until they do, the female seems to bury itself in the seafloor and bed rot to reduce the amount of energy they spend and to protect the eggs from any potential predators. When the eggs hatch, the baby isopods that come out are basically just mini versions of an adult, called manca and being up to 3.4 inches long. Post-hatch, they are almost completely developed. The only things they're missing are their last pair of legs. Just like roly polies, the giant isopod is harmless to humans. But even though they live in the deep sea far, far away from humans, we still somehow manage to be able to hurt these guys. Female isopods in the middle of laying eggs have been caught by deep sea trawlers, which obviously hurt their population. But the isopods in general can attack the trawl catches too. It's also been seen that microplastics have found their way down from the surface to the bottom of the ocean. But how does this affect them if they don't go around looking to eat plastic? Well, it's because the scraps from dead crabs or fish that the isopods eat might have the microplastics in them. After those crabs or fish eat other things that have microplastics. Where does the plastic come from? Us. Duh. What are you, 4? Knowing this, we can all make a collective difference by using less single-use plastic in our lives, even if it's the big-name corporations that are ultimately at fault. But I can't do it on my own, so using less of the plastic it is. Anyway, that's pretty much it for today's lesson on the giant isopod. I'll see you next time.